Hi everyone, it's Christine from Mail Something Pretty, and today I had a question from someone who comes to my class, and she's a new stamper, and she wanted to know, how do I figure out the borders for my cards? Like, how do I figure out what size to do and how to cut those? So I wanted to show you a little trick I came up with her, and I think it's going to work. I told her to give me feedback, but I wanted to show you what I did for her, and it involves these little template cards. So I'm going to adjust the camera and show you so you can see up close what I did. So hold on a sec. Okay, here we go. I actually separated them into two piles, and I'll tell you why in a second. And actually, before I even get into that, just in case, I'm going to show you how I cut paper. This is a Stampin' Up! Trimmer that I really like. I like how it's just grids. It doesn't have some cutters have like lots of pictures on them and it gets confusing to the eye. So this is just a straight grid and with the numbers on the top. It does have an extender ruler, so if you're using a longer piece of paper, for 12 by 12, it can cut that. There's a little lock here, so I'm just going to click that open. And this is a standard size piece of paper. It's 8.5 by 11. And I usually cut my paper horizontal or landscape size. So I know half of 11 is 5.5. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to put this right on all the measurements here. I'm going to put it right on 5.5. I'm going to make sure that the top is against this little lip. Close it. This trimmer has two blades. There's a light gray one and a dark gray one. The lighter is for scoring, which I'll show you in a sec, and the darker one is for cutting. I like to cut from the bottom all the way and then back, like top to bottom. So I cut once and then I always bring it back, and that cuts your piece of paper. And then I could fold it, but I find that you get a better crease if you score it. So this is now, that's a 5.5, which is what we want for a card. And then this is 8.5, so half of 8.5 is 4.25. So I'm gonna measure this up to 4.25. And I'm going to use the scoring blade, and I do the same thing. I go down and then up. And then hopefully you can see it has this little mark, this little score mark. And then it folds easy. I often get asked the question, which way do you fold it? Do you fold it this way or this way? I like to look at the valley. So we just made the crease, so that's the valley. I look at the valley and I fold away from myself. Some people might do it the other way, but I just find that's a little bit, it's not as crisp, I guess. So that has a crisper edge. I don't think there's really a right or wrong way, but that's how I cut the pieces of paper. Okay, so back to my templates here. I don't want to forget those. So I have two piles. One is cut on 1/4 inch segments, and one is cut on 1/8 of an inch segments. The one I gave my friend, I only gave her these because I just didn't want to confuse her. That's a little bit more advanced, but I'm going to show you what I did. So this card that we just cut and folded, when it's folded, its a size is 5.5 by 4.25. Okay, so that's kind of like the card base size. So that's what we're going to use there. When I'm layering, so say for instance this card we actually made in class today. The next layer in, so I'm going to decrease by 1/4 of an inch. So I have that on this piece. So 1/4 inch from 5.5 is 5.25, and then 4.25 becomes 4. So if you layer these together, you get a nice, you actually end up getting an 1/8 of an inch border all the way around, but an 1/8 of an inch becomes 1/4 of an inch. Okay. So there we go. So we need one more layer for this white piece. So that is the next increment. So 1/4 inch off would be 5 3/4. So there we go. Okay, so this is the same format as, or layout as this one. And this is a very common use. People use these 3 layers all the time, so it's a great one. I have these little pieces. They just kind of random circles, and this is an inch strip. I find that a lot of times I do use an inch strip for words, so I just made templates for these. So say if I was just playing around and I said, oh, that would look really nice, just like that. So I would take my ruler and say, okay, this white piece of paper needs to be a little bit, so it's on the 1/4 of an inch, 3.25 inches, and I know that's an inch wide. So, or say if you're doing landscape and you wanted it a longer strip. So you can, and then you just measure it. So that's just a way of kind of playing around. Or say, well, I really like this circle right in the middle. Then you figure out what it is you want. And I'll show you in a second how I sometimes figure out what size I want for the littler pieces I want. This piece was really just kind of, there's mostly just stamping straight on the card. Another example is, so this card, it uses the same base, and then it uses the next one. I skipped one, and then I used this one, I think. No, it's even smaller. Let's see. That one actually I might have measured. Okay, that one I might have measured. Say you do this one and this one. It's almost the same. And that's a really nice layout. So really I ended up skipping 3 of those 1/4 inch layers. But that's a nice thing. And if, say, you put a little saying there, that's a beautiful layout. What do they call them? I don't know, there's a word I can't think of. But that's really nice. Or you can say, well, what if I wanted to skip that layer? I mean, really, you can just kind of play around with them forever. And you just wanted this one. So that way, at least you know, now you say, okay, this is what I'm going to cut my pieces of paper. So the measurements are on there until you get used to, after a while, you just kind of know what you need to cut. But that's helpful. So those are all the 1/4 inch layers. And so these were all cut on the 1/8 of an inch, which I normally wouldn't cut to do a card that way, but sometimes you only want a little bit of a peekaboo color. So on this card, I have my card base, which is here. And then I skipped the next 1/4 inch. So I'm going to skip that one. And then I used this one because I wanted you to see. But then I thought this brown, this early espresso, if it was thicker, it would be too heavy for the card. And so I went to the 1/8 of an inch ones. So I think I used this one. So then I did it here, and on this layout you just see a hair of the green, and I like that. And then I went back to the 1/4 inch, right? I think I did too many layers there. So maybe what I did, I skipped this layer. I'm just trying to copy this card. So there we go. So this is the same as this one. You see? Even I have another example with when I just have a little bit of a peekaboo color here, this Poppy Parade, I just wanted it a little bit through. So I did the same thing, you know. I think I kept that one. You say I get all mixed up. I think I did. There we go. I did this one, right? I'm copying this card. Then I skipped 2 layers. And then I wanted, what's this one? Nope, 4.5 I need. Hopefully you get the idea. No, I can't find the one I want. But you get the idea. So I just wanted it just to see a peekaboo color. So wherever that measurement is, it's an 1/8 of an inch smaller. So it should be like 4 3/8. I just can't find it on here. Here it is. Okay, phew. There it is. So this is the same as this one. Same as this one. Like I did a 1/8 of an inch here. Okay, so hopefully you get the idea. I can show you a couple more. This is just the 1/4 of an inch ones. When I skipped one in between, this is a 1/4 of an inch, and I skipped another one because sometimes you just want a little bit more of a color, or sometimes you want a little bit of less of a color. So that's kind of playing with the card. So hopefully these will help her, and then if you make up your own cards, these will help you too. So you can make them all in the 1/4 inch, you know, 5.5, and then 5 1/4, and 5, and going down. And if you want the 1/8 of an inch, you can do those too. The other thing I wanted to show you, here we go. Okay, so here's a card. Not many layers, right? So I did the first layer of this, and then I skipped a layer, and then I did the next 2 layers. But I have the words here, and I have layers with the words. So those don't really kind of match with my cards, and they don't always with the stamps. So what I did is I took my stamp, and I actually measured it. So that was, if you can see it, 2 3/4 by 1 1/4. So I cut out 2 3/4 by 1 1/4, and I stamped it on the white paper. And then I increased by 1/4 of an inch. So on the background borders, you're decreasing by 1/4 inches. And on the images, you're going to stamp your image first and then increase. So the white is 2 3/4. So then my pink here is going to be 3. And then the same thing. So that's 1 1/4. So then that's going to be 1 1/2. And if I wanted another layer, I would just add on another 1/4 of an inch. So hopefully that makes sense. One more here. This one used, you can see I just wanted a little hair of the darker brown, not brown, gray. So that was on the 1/8 of an inch cuts. But this is a long, narrow strip. So how I did that was, and this is also 2 stamps. So I placed that down. Before I even stamped it, I just placed my stamps on top and I measured it. So I measured the widest point to the widest point. So, and I don't measure exactly on it. I just give a little bit of a border. And however it matches up to the closest 1/2 inch. So that's 2 1/2. And then, oops. Then I measured the length. So I measured a little bit, this one I measured a little bit longer. So I think I gave 1/4 of an inch up here and then down here to 4 1/2. So I cut that piece of paper, stamped it, and then I increased this one only by 1/8 of an inch to mimic the border there. I hope that makes sense. But I think these, now that these are all over the place, I put them in order, but I think these cards with the measurements on will help you. Try it out. These are obviously, none of these colors match each other, and I used some scraps. So just cut a bunch of cardstock, descending in order, and then write them, and then you can just kind of play with the layout. Definitely let me know if you like this idea. Write it in the comments section. So if it is a good idea, I can share it with other people. If it's helpful, sometimes I'm a visual learner, so I need to see things rather than just hear them. Everyone learns it a different way. But I thank you for watching. I hope this makes sense. To learn more things about helpful hints and card ideas and everything, please visit my website at mailsomethingpretty.com and add yourself to my email list so that I can send out newsletters and notifications and sales and videos to you so you get right into your inbox of what's going on in the paper crafting world. So thanks again. This is Christine Josty from Mail Something Pretty. Bye-bye.